Okay, in this last video about adjustable rate mortgages, we're going to talk through some important terms that touch on adjustable rate mortgages and that are unique to adjustable rate mortgages. And the first one is index rate. So this is a benchmark or kind of a starting point for the rates that are calculated or used in adjustable rate mortgages. So an index rate is just something like the cost of funds index for the 11th district, or 360-day LIBOR, or the prime rate in the US, or the 1-year constant maturity treasury yield. So it could be any sort of thing that's a market derived interest rate, and it's going to serve as kind of the basis for the adjustments in the adjustable rate mortgage. A margin amount is something that is added to, by and large, I mean in the vast majority of cases it's going to be added to. I suppose there could be circumstances where you'd have a negative margin amount, so you'd subtract that margin amount from the index rate. But you're typically going to add the margin amount to the index rate, and it's going to be expressed as a percentage. So maybe 1.5% or 1.25% or 2.5%. It could be anything really. So the composite rate is going to be the sum of the index rate and the margin amount. So we stick those two things together and we come up with the composite rate, and that is the rate that is used in the amortization calculation once a rate has been reset. So for calculating the new payment after a rate reset, we're going to use the new composite rate and make the calculation. So a teaser rate and the term down here, negative amortization, these two are really kind of residual terms left over from a previous era when lenders could have kind of an artificially low rate up front, maybe a 6-month teaser rate, and then the rate would jump up to the normal rate. So why that has gone away is largely because of the financial crisis in 2008. There were these teaser rates were not uncommon back before the crisis happened, and so what would happen is borrowers would get a loan on a house that they thought would appreciate really quickly. Maybe they could refinance, but they got a loan on a house, and because the teaser rate was artificially low, their payments were held artificially low, and they got into the house and had really low payments on that house. And then once that 6-month teaser rate burned off, the rate jumped up to its normal rate, the composite rate. Their payments jumped up dramatically, and many times people couldn't handle it. They couldn't sell the house, they couldn't refinance the house, and so they had to basically turn back the keys and get foreclosed. And that happening many millions of times was a part of or contributed to the financial crisis, where real estate values kind of plummeted and all sorts of mayhem happened. So teaser rates are largely gone. Negative amortization is largely gone, especially from the residential market. A reset date, we've already kind of touched on this, but it is how frequently the adjustment is made for an adjustable rate mortgage. And the most common is an annual reset date. So on the anniversary of the mortgage origination, each anniversary you would reset the interest rate. It could be as frequently as every month, however. We've talked about the negative amortization. Caps and floors, these are characteristics of adjustable rate mortgages that really touch on the risk sharing again. So a cap is something that helps protect the borrower. So a cap basically says that interest rates cannot go above a certain level, and they're usually expressed in terms of two numbers. So for instance, you might have a 2%/5% cap, also frequently going to be called a 2-5 cap. And that just means in any 1 year, the interest rate cannot go up by more than 2%. And over the lifetime of the loan, your interest rate cannot go more than 5% higher than where you started. So for instance, if you had an index rate of 2%, a margin amount of 1%, which means your composite rate would be 3%. If you had a 2-5 cap, that means in any given year your rate can't go up by more than 2%. So if you had a 1-year ARM and you start off at 3%, that means for the second year the interest rate could not go higher than 5%, right? The 3% composite rate plus the 2% cap for the first year. And then a 2-5 means 5% lifetime cap, so you can't ever go above 8% overall on this loan. So the caps are meant to protect borrowers. And it may seem strange that you might have a lifetime cap of 5%, but before many of you were born, back in the 80s, there were double-digit interest rates on home loans. They may even got as high as 16, 17, 18%. So some people were borrowing money for their houses and paying an interest rate up in the mid to high teens. So ARMs, they can go up, interest rates can go up, and caps are a way to protect borrowers from excessively high jumps in the interest rate. Floors, on the other hand, are meant to protect lenders, and this is to protect lenders from the rate going down too low. So if rates go down, lenders don't make as much. And so, especially in this world with interest rates in many parts of the world being negative, this would be something that is important to lenders to protect them from the rates going down too low. So caps protect borrowers, floors protect lenders. In the absence of those protections, that's going to affect who's bearing the most risk, and therefore what the interest rate is going to be initially. Will it be high because the lender is retaining risk, or will it be lower because the borrower is retaining risk? All right, lastly here, the hybrid ARMs, this notation, a 3-1, 5-1, or 7-1, indicates the first number, how long it is a fixed loan, so how long the interest rate is static before the adjustments kick in. And then that second number is indicating how frequently the reset happens. And so that 1 is indicating on an annual basis. So a 3-1 ARM means that the interest rate on the loan is fixed for the first 3 years, and then it adjusts annually thereafter. A 5-1 ARM, it's fixed for the first 5 years, and it adjusts annually thereafter. And you can probably tell what a 7-1 ARM would be. Well, let's go to the last slide for this particular slide deck and wrap up this video. And we'll look at other ARM considerations here. ARMs, as we've talked about, lower the interest rate risk for the lender. And because there's no change overall in the interest rate risk, we're just sharing it. It's like a piece of pie, or a pie, and we're cutting it into different sized pieces. One piece is for the borrower, one piece is for the lender. Those two pieces together make up the whole pie. So if we shrink the piece for the lender, that means the borrower's piece is getting bigger. And so if we lower the interest rate risk for the lender, it is increasing that risk for the borrower. And so the shifting of interest rate risk is really a function of the adjustment periods, of caps and floors, and of the choice of index, and other factors perhaps. But the big idea is that we have this kind of continuum of risk that we can move back towards one party or the other, and it should affect the interest rate on the loan. Another important point, ARMs increase the default risk of a borrower. And this is because interest rates can go up for a borrower. They're not fixed, but they can adjust upward, and they can adjust upward rather dramatically. We talked about the cap idea with the 2.5 cap. A 2% increase in your interest rate on a loan would amount to a substantial increase in payments. For the median mortgage loan in Knox County, that might be a $300,000 loan. That could mean $400 or $500 increase in payments. And for most families, I would say, that change in a monthly required payment is going to really put a strain on cash flows. And so that payment shock, it's certainly possible for it to throw a borrower into a situation where they can't continue to make their mortgage payment, and so they would default on the loan. So the net result of all this is we have lowered risk to the lender and increased risk to the borrower. And so this will, I say should, result in ARMs having a lower initial interest rate compared to fixed rate mortgage loans. And we looked at that. We looked at Bankrate.com and saw that that was true for a 5-1 ARM versus a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. And that's typically going to be the case. So that wraps up this this chapter and this topic. And so the next set of videos we'll be looking at some other mortgage concepts and doing some more calculations and thinking about what that means for loans. And so we will see you then.